Hello and welcome. Got some more GeoGuessr for you guys today. We're going to be starting a new series where I try and make it into the Champions League in competitive duels. Today we're going to be reviewing some duels from last week. And right before these duels, as you can see, I was sitting right at the bottom of Master 1, meaning that I was going to be relegated back to Master 2. And these games were recorded just before the end of the week with about an hour left. So every single one of these is a must-win for me. So I need to pick up 60 rating points by the end of the week. And I'll be watching the recording, giving you guys my thoughts. So it won't be my live reaction, but hopefully I'll be able to explain every guess. And without further ado, let's dive in. So up first here, we're against somebody from the UK. And heading straight into round 1, we see that we're going to be in the US with those rumble strips and this bollard with that circular reflector. The circular reflector would tell you some states instead of others, but I'm not exactly sure. Other states have square reflectors. We also see the yellow center line, sun's in the south, flat landscape, and then this orange soil is what's letting me get Oklahoma here instead of some other states. Looking at that tree, which feels a little bit further north, and just looking around, very sort of rolling hill landscape. That's common in sort of the center of the country there, and end up getting a pretty nice guess, but the opponent's in Arkansas, so we don't lose too many points there. Or sorry, we don't gain too many points there. Heading straight. We are back in the US, very quickly noticing English on the signs. It looks like it could be Mexico, but then when you have English on the signs, you know you're going to be in the US. But it does feel pretty close to the Mexico border with this landscape. We're seeing some palm trees and stuff, so even though it's deserty, we're not going to be right in the middle of a desert. We're seeing US-style road lines, the American street signs. We're looking around, just making sure that it couldn't be Mexico, but again, with English on the signs, it's never going to be Mexico. We see an American flag there to confirm it. We go in, we make a guess in Southern California. It ends up being Arizona, but not too far away. We see a cool looking cactus there. And these houses are definitely American style instead of those that you'd see in Mexico. We don't see a front plate on that car, which is actually interesting. That would definitely help you get Arizona, which sometimes doesn't have front plates. Whereas in California, you would always see a front plate. But we didn't see that until it was too late. So still happy with the guess though in California. So in this next round here, we're going to be in Spain, and we know that because these blue and white chevrons, but also these yellow reflectors right there in the guardrail. So France also would have blue and white chevrons, but they're not going to have the yellow reflectors there. It's really only Spain and Belgium that have yellow reflectors. So I'm looking for an area with hills. I'm looking close to the Portuguese border. So I end up clicking kind of farther north there, in the middle of a bunch of hills where I think it could be, kind of hedging for a bunch of different areas. Ends up being a little bit further south, and I'm very happy with the guess to get Spain there over France. Opponent is in France, which again makes perfect sense with the blue and white chevrons, so not a bad guess from them. Then heading into round 4, here we're actually going to be back in the Americas. We see tuk-tuks here, and we see an octagonal pole, which is going to be the first big clue, and then a Coca-Cola sign, which is going to be the second big clue that we are in Mexico. Both those things are very common in Mexico. The tuk-tuks are not super common in Mexico, but if you see them, then you're more likely to be farther south. The colorfully painted houses, the green poles, those are also very common in Central America, and especially Mexico. And so we're feeling pretty confident about the guess. We zoom in here and go a little bit further south. Opponent is going to get it as well. We both go further north than the actual answer, and that's probably just because we thought it was drier than it would be down there, but maybe it's just a dry day. So heading into round 5. Multis are starting now at this point, and immediately we see an O with 2 apostrophes on it. So instead of an umlaut, which would be 2 dots, it's kind of 2 apostrophes. And that's going to immediately give away that this is Hungary. So Hungarian is the only language that has that particular letter with the O with 2 apostrophes on it, which you can see right there. We send it in quick in case the opponent doesn't know that or doesn't see that. And they are in Estonia, so we are right to go quick and pick up some really good points there. Get the flawless victory, pick up some rating points, and heading into the next one, we're against somebody from Canada. And I've sped this one up because it's a relatively long duel with a bunch of kind of easy rounds. So here we see the Ghana tape, we see the car with the kind of segments, the colorful pieces of metal in there, and this landscape. Not sure exactly where it is, so I click middle of the country, ends up being south. opponent's not too far away from me there. Here we are in Ireland, but it's interesting because that's actually not a typical Irish fence. It's kind of a weak clue sometimes, but you often would expect Irish fences to have a more rounded corners, and it ends up being really close to Northern Ireland there. Opponent hedges Isle of Man, which is a good guess. Now this round I thought for sure that we were going to be in Turkey until I see the language and the license plates. So we're seeing English on signs, which is interesting. And we look around, we see these apartment buildings, and there we see the 2 blue strips on the plate. So we know we're going to be in Albania. And I end up getting a really nice plonk here, basically on the 5K in the capital. Pretty random guess for me, but very happy with it. We'll take it. Then heading into this next round, we see language here, which is Cyrillic, and I don't personally notice any letters that are unique to the different languages, so we're not sure. There's a guy without a shirt on. Classic for this part of the world. So I'm not sure if it's Ukraine or Russia, so I click kind of near the border. You might be able to tell with the Google car, but I'm not particularly familiar with that. So we end up getting the wrong country, but they're in Serbia, so we end up being a little bit closer there. And the multis start. We're in Reunion here with the tape on the back of the car this time, whereas in Ghana it was in the front of the car. And this landscape being in Europe is basically, with the European plates and stuff, is basically going to always be Reunion. Here, I thought at first we were in Brazil with this landscape and the soil, but then I see this line on the car there, and that's going to be unique to Colombia, that Google car, even though it does look a lot like Brazil here. And then looking around, the landscape does actually fit for Colombia. It's right on the Thai border, which makes sense. Those kind of almost like rice fields, very common in both countries. Now this round I've sped up even faster because I basically spend the whole round looking for a phone code, which I assume is what my opponent is doing as well. We are in somewhat urban, rural Brazil, and so if you get a phone code, it's going to tell you basically exactly where you are. There's a lot of phone numbers in this round, but amazingly, I actually never find a phone code. So I end up having to just kind of make a guess until I do eventually see these palm trees here in the back. And those are kind of more the Amazonian style, I believe, with the kind of thinner palm leaves. And I've heard that those are common around Belém, so I click there. Not a very confident guess for me, but I suspect that my opponent's not going to have a very good guess here. It's a difficult round. Ends up being in Boa Vista, so we got the Amazon vibe, but in the wrong part of the Amazon. But we'll take that, pick up a couple points. This one is Shitcam. Again, with that sort of landscape that we were talking about, this is going to be Cambodia. Kind of looks a little bit like Brazil. The difference here is that we have houses on stilts, which is very common in Cambodia. Single yellow line down the middle. And opponent, of course, is going to get that one as well. It's a fairly easy Cambodia. Multis are starting to get quite a bit higher now. And this one's like just super ultra flat. So immediately I'm thinking Netherlands. And you look around, you see a couple of brick buildings and Generation 2 camera, I believe, here. So basically, you know, with the windmill and how flat it is and the brick buildings, this has to be Netherlands. I click close to Belgium just in case it's Belgium or something, but ends up being Netherlands. Opponent is in Poland, and we pick up the win for some more rating. We're 30 rating points behind where we need to be, or we're going to get demoted, so still must-win games here. We're up against somebody from the Netherlands with a little bit of a higher rating, which is good. We definitely need all the rating points we can get. In this first round here, we're going to be in the Dominican Republic, and you can tell because this Google car is actually unique. It's a little bit different than the Guatemalan one because the bar is filled in there in the roof rack. We're seeing all this gray pole paint on the poles, which usually actually indicates that you're going to be in the other city, Santiago de los Caballeros. I click in the capital there, which is not right. And so, yeah, we should have trusted the pole paint there, but I didn't notice until after I guess. But we will keep that in mind for next time. Going into round 2 here, no points in round 1. Again, we're going to be in Latin America. We have a white Google car with the full brake light visible. We can see these poles here are actually unique to Chile. So we know we're going to be in Chile. We're seeing a lot of palm trees. It's not too dry. It's not super tropical either. That usually is going to lead you towards more the middle of the country. We're seeing hills, which are very common all across the country. Just taking a quick look around here, seeing if there's any town names or anything that we can use. Don't really come across anything. Making 100% sure we don't see any Argentinian plates or anything, but with those poles, we should be in Chile. End up just clicking Santiago here. Not too confident about it, but it's right in the middle of the country, so it's not a bad guess. Probably won't be too far off with this landscape. And yeah, it ends up being a little bit further north, but the opponent's also in Santiago, so we don't lose too many points. Feeling good going into round 3. This one's going to be in Mexico. We're seeing a lot of Spanish on the signs here, which is going to lead you towards Central America with this road being very wide. The sand here is very, the soil is very sandy, and we also see an octagonal pole there. Looking for any license plates. Then I noticed that rock wall that I'll zoom in here in a second, and I'll point out that this rock wall here is very exclusive to the Yucatan Peninsula. So the sandy soil with the white rock, I love these guys hanging out in front of the wall, by the way. But yeah, rock wall, white rocks, sandy soil, Yucatan Peninsula for sure, especially with this tropical landscape. We end up being right on it, and our opponent's in Brazil, so we pick up quite a few points here, which is a very good start to this duel. You wouldn't see quite as much sandy soil in Brazil, and the rock wall, again, super common in Yucatan Peninsula. This round, we are actually going to be in Brazil. The water tank there, the blue water tank, is a dead giveaway for that country in particular. I'm looking here to see if we happen to have any phone codes, because again, those are very useful in Brazil. Don't see any. The language looks like it could be Portuguese, just to make sure. I said farther south here, and that's mostly due to the fact that one of those poles was circular. Circular poles are much more common the further south you go. You're not going to see a lot of circular poles up in the deep north. And it's, again, not quite tropical enough to be like coastal or anything like that. So we end up sending pretty far south. It ends up being even further south, right on the Uruguay border there. Not too surprising, but hard to commit that far south. Then going into round 5 here, we have a nice substantial lead, and we're back in Mexico, which is great because it's a country that I'm actually pretty good at. And we see that that sign in the back there is actually kind of bolder than the average sign. So if you see a sign, a warning sign like that, that's a little bit bolder, then you want to send Mexico. We're going further north this time because we don't see any tropical vegetation. We see these kind of low hills. There's a sign again. You can see it's a little bit bolder. And end up making a really nice guess. Opponents in Chile, which is not a bad guess, but if you see that warning sign, then you know you're definitely going to be in Mexico. Also, I think the sun was a little bit to the south, which helps confirm it. All right, going into the next one. We're up against somebody from the US. Feeling good about our win streak here. 3 in a row is not too bad, especially since we needed them. This round was actually a repeat for me, but I didn't remember the repeat. I think that I actually, on the first one, sent South Africa on this. This is, in retrospect, a pretty easy Latin America, and specifically Brazil. There's nothing that obviously gives it away, but we're driving right, the sun is in the north, it's somewhat tropical. There's a couple of conifers, though, around. It's a difficult round. The license plate there is a little bit longer than you would see in, for example, Chile, Argentina. So that can definitely help you get Brazil. I couldn't remember which city it was in, so I send pretty far south. In hindsight, a little bit too far south. But it's not a terrible guess. And we'll see where the opponent ended up sending. And they're right in the same area. They actually give a wave. Then I try to wave, accidentally sent GG, and then send the wave. Now this one's going to be Japan, and I immediately look for a pole plate since I do know the pole plates. Those look like they're actually kind of the ones that you'd see in a lot of the country, so they're not super helpful. And looking around to see any other architectural clues, don't notice anything, although in hindsight all these red roofs would have been helpful to get the right region. And looking at them again, the pole plates don't give anything away to me. Looking for any sort of roofs. Sort of fancier roofs are more common in the south, where you'd see sort of flatter roofs in the north. Looking for any ladders on the buildings, which would be for snow removal. Opponent sends something in, and take one last look at the pole plates. In hindsight, the one on the bottom might be a little bit bigger, because we are going to be in Shigoku here. I send Kansai because, again, I think it might just be the kind of generic Kansai plates, but it turns out to be Shigoku. And again, that bottom plate might have been a little bit larger, which would have helped you get that. Opponents in Hokkaido, not sure what convinced them of that, but not a terrible guess. We didn't have the very typical southern architecture, so that might have been why they went farther north. And this one's going to be Argentina. No, I actually don't look at the Google car here, which is a mistake. Oh no, I do look at it. It's just, yeah, you can't see anything. And so if you had black car, that would lead you more towards Argentina over Chile. I don't see the car. I'm looking around, seeing Spanish language, South American kind of vibes here. Sun's in the north. Trying to figure out what country this would be. I'm kind of between Argentina and Chile at this point. Even in retrospect, there's nothing obvious to me that would give away which one it is. I go Chile just because the hills are pretty big. With mountains, you're always going to be more likely to be in Chile, although of course there are regions of Argentina that are quite hilly, but since those are the regions that border Chile, I go Chile just because I think it's more likely. But it does actually end up being Argentina, and I'm way too far north. Opponent gets a really nice guess, so I give him a GG there for that one. Even though they're in the wrong country, that's an excellent guess to get the right region. This one is immediately giving sort of North America vibes. These are northern hemisphere vegetation with these pines and everything. The sun is in the south. Opponent sends it in instantly, which makes me a little bit nervous because I'm not sure exactly what country this is, although I'm leaning towards Canada given how far north it looks. And Generation 2 camera is going to be more common there. Completely unsure of the region. You can see I'm clicking all over the place. End up getting the wrong province by over all the way on the other side of the prairies. Opponent's in Finland though, so not sure exactly what convinced them to go Finland so quickly, but we'll take it. This one we see Uruguayan pole with the trident. We see this kilometer marker is Uruguay. These tree plantations, very common there. We have black car. Everything about this round just screams Uruguay. Dirt road. Again, that trident, super, super common there. Wooden pole. Not exactly sure about the region. I just look for an area with a lot of trees. I'm actually clicking Argentina there first, not sure why. But then, yeah, realizing it's Uruguay, of course, clicking an area that's a little bit greener, and get a really close guess, which I was quite happy with. Again, just going there in particular because of how green it was. How many planted trees. We pick up some more rating. And we're getting close to our goal, but since we're on a good streak here, I think we're going to keep going. So we do get a little bit greedy here. We have enough rating to not get relegated, but we decided to roll the dice and go into one more game. Up against a higher rated player this time. We're going to start out in Mexico here. Brightly painted houses, beautiful Gen 4 camera. Don't know the license plate, unfortunately. Those trees, I believe, are Italian cypresses, which you find a lot in Mexico. Even more, I think, in the south of Mexico. We see a lot of palm trees, though, which are similar to the palm trees you might see in, for example, California. So that's why I go a little bit further north here. And then again, the landscape's a little bit hilly, dry. We actually both get really, really nice guesses here in Durango. Give each other a little smile. Pretty good start to the duel. No points in round one. Heading into round two. First thing I notice here is the black back to that sign. So that's going to be, in Europe, it's mostly going to be Italy and Romania. I send the wrong one in this case. The house in retrospect looks very Italian, but I do actually end up sending Romania here. Not exactly sure why. I think I got focused on the tile roofs, which you do find in the northwest of Romania, which is where I guess. But you obviously also find them in Italy. So Italy is a much better guess here in retrospect. One of the first major blunders of the video. And opponent is in Croatia, which is not a bad guess, although you wouldn't see the black back of the sign as much in Croatia. Heading into the next round here. The language is not familiar to me, although in retrospect it's very obvious what it is. Yo. And the white Google car is going to help us out to get what country this is. We do end up sending the wrong one here. Another major blunder. I just end up sending Bolivia, which I'm not exactly sure why I'm sending that. I just wasn't sure where it was. And then I immediately realized that we're actually driving left when I look at that car, and I'm like, uh-oh. So yeah, this is going to be Lesotho with that Gen 2 camera and the white car. Sorry, Gen 3 camera and the white car. So not very good duel. Probably thinking at this point that we should not have gone in. So here I make actually another blunder. So I see that that sign ends in V, which I think is the Dutch or German, but it's actually the Danish. The Dutch or German is Vec or Reg. Not exactly sure. And I see all the brick buildings, and so I send Belgium close to Netherlands. There's also a yellow plate there, which you do find in Denmark, which this is. So the company plates or the business plates in Denmark are yellow, so that's why we saw there. End up losing the duel, losing some rating, and now we're back in relegation territory, so not great. So jumping straight into our last game here. This one's definitely a must-win because it's about 15 minutes before the end of the week, and so if we don't get a win here, we're probably getting demoted or relegated. This one, red soil, pretty dry, looks like Brazil, so we both go Brazil. Opponent gets a really nice guess there, up in the drier part of the country, so it makes sense. But still a nice guess from them. A little bit higher rated this time. And this round was actually pretty difficult. It looks like the same part of the world, getting kind of a Brazil vibe here with the mix of pine trees and other vegetation, double yellow line. Notice in 1 second here, this flat signpost is going to be a big clue. Looking like it could be Spanish or Portuguese on the sign. I do speak Spanish, but I don't speak Portuguese, so sometimes it can be a little bit hard to tell if you don't have that many words. We're seeing red soil though, palm trees, pine trees. Definitely a unique mix of vegetation in this round. I think that speed limit sign might help somebody, but it doesn't help me, unfortunately. I'm checking the sun direction here just to be sure. I end up sending Argentina. Go where it's a little bit hillier, a little bit drier. Not totally sure about this guess, but opponent sent it in, so we gotta do that as well. It ends up being in Misiones, which is interesting. So we're just barely in the right country there. Opponent sends Brazil, which is a very reasonable guess. I was, again, 50-50 Argentina-Brazil there, right up until the end. Round 3, I actually thought was pretty difficult. So that red truck there looks like so much bait to me because it's looks like the UK Postal Service truck, the Royal Mail. It's not though, because we're actually in Ireland here, and you can tell because of the lack of a yellow plate on the back of that car there. But I wasn't sure if that was bait, but ultimately looking around at the landscape and these large yards, you have to send Ireland on a round like this. And I don't want to click too far away from the UK there because wasn't totally sure up until the end with that truck. Opponent's actually from the UK. We both basically make the same guess, so not a lot of points. This round was an interesting one where we have this kind of rolling landscape, very dry, old buildings. Looks like there might be some olive trees or something off in the distance. And I'm checking that sign there to see if the red border goes all the way to the edge, which would be an indicator for Spain over something like Italy or anywhere else this could be. Although ultimately this landscape feels very iconically Spanish, I do decide that that red border probably goes all the way to the edge, although it is hard to tell since it's so far away. Red tile roofs go kind of on the coast there, very Mediterranean vibe. I'm thinking it still could be Italy, but feeling pretty good about Spain. Ends up being a little bit further south than we clicked. Still a pretty good guess though. Opponent's basically in the same spot. Going into round 5, multis are starting to kick in. So this one, when we first loaded in, I actually thought that we might be in the Philippines, especially when we look around and see these tuk-tuks here. But then I see this little shield on the sign, which is actually going to be unique to Mexico. And so as soon as I see that, I immediately send it in because I am hoping that the opponent will miss that and either send Philippines or somewhere else in Latin America. Looking around, it's kind of becomes very obvious that there's all these rock walls like we were just talking about, so we're going to be on Yucatan. But I'm still hoping the opponent will miss the continent here. And they do end up sending Peru or Ecuador, I'm not sure exactly where they were, but not a bad guess from them. You do see those in the north of Peru. But very happy to get Mexico off the shield there. Subtle clue. Now this one was also a difficult round. We're going to be in Turkey with those bollards and those chevrons. I'm not sure how common the yellow lines are in Turkey, but this round was really, for me, all about lining up the coastline, because I don't think you'd see that combination of chevrons and bollards anywhere else. The concrete pole is also kind of unique. and we're looking around, just trying to line up the coast. I find something that kind of fits and I send it in quick because I do think this is a difficult round, and if they don't know the chevrons, and they might send the wrong place, and they do end up sending South Africa, which is not a bad guess. The sun was a little bit in the south, and again, I don't think you have that combination in South Africa, but very happy to win, and now we're not going to get relegated, so very happy with that comeback there, and there we go. One last thing I wanted to mention is that we are trying to get to the Champions Division, but we also, as a secondary goal, are trying to make it into the leaderboard for the US. So right now we need a little bit more rating, and then we'll get into the top 250 to be on the leaderboard, which would be awesome. So thank you so much for watching. I think we did pretty good there in the end to stay in Masters 1, so the road to the Champions Division continues. If you could, like and subscribe, it would mean the world to me. Let me know that you want to see more of this because I like making this. I want to do more of it. And let me know what you thought in the comments, if there's anything I could improve, anything you want to see different. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.